we didn't do the other day? That's what you're concerned about? Yeah. They don't ask you many questions about that anymore because it's kind of outdated, that whole left brain, right brain controversy. But just know that the right brain tends to be the creative side. It controls the left side of the body. And the left side of the brain is the language side. That's the question they ask most about which side of the brain controls language. And just remember the L's, language left, okay?
Hi, Mr. Moyal.
How's it going, Jake? What's going on?
Jake?
I mean, Jack, sorry.
Wow.
It's not like I didn't call you Bill. I mean, Jack and Jake, it's not that far.
Yeah, that one hurt.
Yeah, anything but Jack would hurt. I get it. Hold on a second. Sorry, dude. Okay.
I understand.
It's been a long day. All right. So, and Vinny, split brain?
Yeah, like this.
Split brain syndrome was discovered by Sperry and Gazzaniga, and that was just about, they cut the corpus callosum. And remember, when the corpus callosum is cut, the two sides of the brain don't communicate with one another. So you get something called split brain syndrome. And the most common thing they would ask about that is, when do they cut the corpus callosum? For what reason? Do you remember that, Vinny?
Nope.
Someone does. They cut it for epileptic seizures. So usually seizures will originate in your dominant cerebral hemisphere. So to contain them, they cut the corpus callosum. But as a result, you get split brain syndrome, which means one side of the brain doesn't communicate with the other. Okay? All right. Any other questions before I start? So basically, I'll share my screen. Okay? Hold on. Okay, so, all right, share that. Okay. And I'll bring up that. Okay, so we're going to go into, so there's a few things, okay? I'll go back to research afterwards. So I want to knock out cognitive psychology because it's a huge unit. One of Miss Cerise's students, did you guys cover this unit already? Memory, thinking?
We're doing that right now. Okay,
so that's, Jess, so that's good. That's helpful. Thank you. So you're right. Did you just start it or you've been doing it?
She told us today, she's like, Moyal is going to teach you guys stuff you haven't learned yet, but don't be freaked out. So we haven't done it yet.
Freaked out. Okay, yeah, don't be freaked out. Okay.
I'm done.
What about karate's class? You guys did this already, right? But did you just do it? Cognition, memory?
We did it a little while ago.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. All right, so we'll all benefit from doing it right now. So this is what I want you to do. That's period 2. Okay. Hold on.
Mr. Moyal, can you accept me into the room?
Are you not in the room right now?
No, I didn't. I came in on my computer.
Oh, okay.
I want like another interface.
Yeah, hold on. Let me go back into.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, hold on. Why are you making me do something fancy? You know how special I am.
Yeah, I know.
6 people waiting view. All right. Well, that's pretty cool technique you got there, actually. The backdoor method. All right. Everyone should be in. Okay. All right. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go into AP Psych Review. There's 2 things. It says AP Review Memory. So you might want to have this out. We're going to go through this. Okay. And then I have another one for cognitive psychology right here. This one is still in outline form, but I'm going to go through this. Okay, so I'll have this on my screen. AP Review Cognitive Psychology. Hold on, I wanted to do one more thing here. Okay, and if you follow along with the outlines, then that will work. So we're going to do the memory outline first. So for those of you that want to follow along, okay, you could, download this, and then and we'll move along with it. Okay. Any questions? And then at the end of this, I have FRQs that they ask about cognition. So once I go through the material, I'm going to show you how it ends up in an FRQ, okay? And we'll talk about strategies for writing it, okay? Everyone good? All right, so let's start. So when they talk about cognitive psychology, anything cognitive is thinking. So with certain perspectives, it should just pull up keywords right away, and you see the word cognitive, and you focus on the answer that has something to do with thinking. Because usually in these perspective questions, they'll say, what is the focus of cognitive psychology? And then they'll say the unconscious mind, and that'll be a wrong answer. That'll be psychoanalytic. Or they'll say observable behavior, and that will be behaviorism. Or they'll say natural selection, and that will be the evolutionary perspective. But as soon as you see an answer that has something to do with thinking, that's your signal that this is cognitive psychology. Remember, cognitive psychologists always focus on processes. So they're not concerned with the where in the brain. That's what biological psychologists are concerned with. They're concerned with the how. And cognitive psychology is born with the computer. So before the 1950s, there was no cognitive psychology. But because we invented the computer, we said, this is a brain. Information goes in it, information stored in it, and information comes out of it. So the brain spawned the computer, but the computer also affected the way we think about the brain, okay? So cognitive psychologists focus on processes. Memory is a process. The first step is encoding, putting something into memory. You can do that 3 ways: visual encoding, acoustic encoding, and semantic encoding. When you put things in visually, you do it with images. When you put things in acoustically, you do it with sounds. And when you put things in semantically, you put it in with meaning, which is the most powerful kind of encoding. Have you gone over this in class? Yeah, what is it, Amanda?
Semantic,
Yeah, why is that?
because you're relating it to something personal.
Yeah, so remember, that's why self-referencing is there. And you know in school, if you can relate anything to your own life, you're going to remember it. If you're asking yourself in a class, why am I learning this? Then you're never going to remember it, right? Because you can't self-reference it. But acoustic encoding is powerful too. Like when people remember the ABCs, they do it acoustically. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, so when you're going to alphabetize something, you might have to do the song in your head to pull up the memory, right? And visual learning is also very strong. The second stage is storage, which is keeping it in memory over time. And the third stage is retrieval. What they ask you often is the difference between recall and recognition. Which is an easier type of retrieval, recall or recognition?
Recall,
And why is that, Jack? What's the difference between them?
I guess.
Yeah, recall, well, no, recall is not. Actually, recognition is much easier. So recognition is the type of retrieval you need in a multiple choice test. You know, if you get a U.S. history multiple choice that says which of the following is not a cause of World War II, then all you have to do is recognize the right answer. The choices are in front of you. With recall, that's more of an essay test where you just have to pull things out of your memory. So recalls would be write an essay on the causes of World War II. You have no cues. You have no multiple choice to help you. So recall has no cues. Recognition has cues. Okay? All right. There are 3 reasons for forgetting in this model. Encoding failure is you never put it into memory. So I've asked my classes, what is the building on the back of a $10 bill? And almost nobody knows it, but they've all seen it. But the reason is people don't encode it, right? It is the US Treasury. Storage means you had something in memory, you encoded it, but you lost it over time. So for those of you that have spoken a foreign language when you were a kid and don't speak it anymore, or played a musical instrument and don't play it anymore, you've experienced storage decay. You knew how to do it. You knew how to speak that language, but you lost it because you didn't use it. There's something called the decay rate. And guys, take a look at this. This is called the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Can we predict how much we're going to forget? So a guy named Hermann Ebbinghaus had people remember nonsense syllables. Words like bap, zock, piz, zik, right? Words that meant nothing. The reason why is he didn't want them semantically encoding it. Amanda, if you have a dog and the word is dog, you're going to remember dog, okay? If your parents have a car and the word is car, you're more likely to remember it. If you live in a house and the word is house, so he had them remembering nonsense syllables. And what he found was that the forgetting curve is predictable. There's a massive initial decline and then a leveling off over time. So if you look, within the first hour, they lost 60% of those words. But then in the next 9 hours, it leveled off. So that what they remembered, what they still remembered, they remembered days later. Okay, a month later. So I've used this in my class. You guys took global history and you've lost most of it. But the stuff you remember from global history, you're going to remember for a long time. Okay? For those of you that have played a musical instrument, like I played piano when I was a little kid, I've lost most of it. But I can still sit down at a piano and play several songs because of this. Okay? A sharp initial decline, but then a leveling off over time. The Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. Okay. Last but not least, you can put something into memory. You can store it, but you can have trouble retrieving that. That we call the tip of the tongue phenomenon. So if you've ever had something on the tip of your tongue, you know it's there, you're just having a hard time getting to it. So that's called retrieval failure. Okay? Everyone good? Anyone questions so far? No? All right. All right, other reasons for forgetting. There's something called interference. Interference means one thing in memory is interfering with another thing in memory. So there's two types of interference. Let's say you have two passwords. Do you ever sign into the computer and then have to start deleting because you put the wrong password in? That means one password is interfering with the other. Is the old password interfering with the new password, or is the new password interfering with the old password? If some of you are athletes and you have multiple locker combinations, or you got a new lock, is the old one interfering with the new one, or is the new one interfering with the old one? Or if you change the passcode on your computer on your phone because you're shady and you don't want people getting into your phone, do you default back to your old passcode, or do you forget your new one? So guys, always look at the prefix. Retro means old, or retro means before. So think of retro styles, stuff like bell bottoms, things that used to be in style, right? Or fluorescent clothing like the 80s. If something's retro, it's old. So ask yourself what's being forgotten. If the new password is being forgotten, or the new locker combination, that's proactive interference. If the old locker combination is being forgotten, or the old password, then retroactive interference is happening. So I'm going to give an example. Someone give me what it is. I moved into a new house a year ago, so I changed cable. HBO used to be on channel 800 something, right? Now it's on 900 something, but I keep going back to 800 something. What am I experiencing? Retroactive or proactive interference?
Proactive,
Yep. Why is that, Jack?
because the news forgotten.
Yep. Excellent. I keep forgetting what my new cable station is. It's driving me crazy, actually. It's almost bad as remote teaching. Okay, here we go. Position of items in a series. If I gave you 20 items to remember, can we predict which ones you would forget? 20 items is above the capacity of working memory. The capacity of working memory is 7 items. So you're going to forget. Like if I asked you to memorize 20 names, you'd forget a lot of them. But which ones are you likely to forget? If you lose the items at the beginning of the list, it's primacy. Think prime first. So you lose the first few items. If you lose the last items, that's the recency effect. You lose the most recent, which are the last ones. But the most common thing is, when we're remembering items in a series, we tend to remember the beginning and remember the end, but we lose the middle. And I always tell my classes, think presidents. It's pretty easy to remember the first few presidents of the United States and the last few. But a lot of the ones in the middle get lost, right? Can you relate to that? Yeah? Okay. A retrieval cue is anything that can help access a memory. So if you walked into the halls of your elementary school or middle school, I don't know, has anyone done that recently? You would be flooded with memories that you haven't thought about in a long time because the halls themselves would serve as retrieval cues. It just rained, right? And the smell of the rain coming off the concrete is a retrieval cue. It makes you think of summer or some other thing. Okay, so smells are powerful retrieval cues. Songs are powerful retrieval cues. If you hear a song that you haven't heard in a long time, it might bring you right back to a time and a place. So when what'd you say?
Someone's like, I think someone's in the waiting room. They're going to let them.
Oh yeah, okay, this damn waiting room. Tell you.
Mr. Moyal,
Yo,
this reminds me from when I went back to Lakeville and didn't realize how small the halls were when I was little. It felt so big. I went
yeah,
back.
but see, even just being in one of those halls, Jack, probably it hit you. You know, it probably
Even,
like
the classrooms felt tiny.
yeah. Well, you were smaller, Jack.
Mr. Moyal,
Yo, what's up,
Hey,
Max?
what's up?
just a technical tip. If you don't like the whole waiting room thing, you can disable it.
Yeah, I know. That's like an advanced technique for me, so I'm gonna work on that. I appreciate it.
No, but like once you disable it, you can disable it you can disable it permanently. So you
The
won't
thing
have
is, I
it
know that.
anymore.
I know that. I like having it in the beginning, right?
All right.
It gives me a dramatic entrance, you know, it's very important to me.
Wait, how come you don't do it for class then?
Because I need more of this dramatic entrance, you know, in class, I don't mind.
I feel that.
It has to be like an unveiling. Okay. So they're clear. All right, I guess I'll leave that up. No, I'm not gonna leave it up, it's bothering me. Okay, tell people to come here on time. What can I tell them? All right, let's get back. And so no,
I have a question.
yes, Max.
It's not relating to this. It's general though. For our class for tomorrow's test,
Come on, Max.
is it all multiple choice or will there be an FRQ on it?
Yeah, it's all multiple choice.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, let's keep going. All right,
I have a question.
yes.
Can we go back to the fact stuff? That stuff, yeah. And on the sheet that you gave us, it said tendency to remember the items in the beginning of the list for primacy effect.
Yeah. Oh, this says lose? Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, good eye. Sorry about that. Wow. Remember. Sorry about that. Wow, good call. Wow, so sorry. All right. Okay, yeah, primacy you remember in the beginning of the list. Recency you remember at the end of the list, or the most recent items. Serial position, you lose the middle. Okay, but you remember the endpoints. The reason for the serial position effect and why it's the most common is that you use the endpoints as anchors for memory. So you can start at George Washington and just work your way forward, right? Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Madison, what is it? Adams, Monroe, and then Jackson, right? And then you can work your way from Trump, or I'm sorry, Biden, and go Biden, Trump, and then work your way back to Obama, and then keep going from there, right? But since you can't use the middle as anchors, we tend to lose a lot of the middle. So you'll remember the presidents in the middle as long as they did something noteworthy, like you won't forget Lincoln, you won't forget FDR, you won't forget Teddy Roosevelt. Okay. But James Buchanan or Millard Fillmore or Zachary Taylor, you know?
Who's that?
Exactly. Okay. Some chumps that were in the middle somewhere. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Context-dependent memory is when retrieval of a memory can be helped by similarities in environment. So I told my classes, a lot of SAT tutors tell you to mimic your physical environment that you study in to the test-taking conditions. So if you're going to take a test in a hoodie, wear a hoodie when you study. If you're going to take a test in your pajamas, wear pajamas when you study. If you're going to listen to music, well, don't listen to music because you can't do it during the test. Okay. Do you have SAT tutors that tell you that kind of stuff? Well,
Yeah.
Then they're worth their money, okay? Context-dependent memory says that this is why, I told my classes, if you're in the kitchen and then you go into your bedroom and you get into your bedroom and go, why am I here? So what do you naturally do? Amanda?
Go back to the kitchen.
And then as soon as you go back into the kitchen, you get, the memory pops up because you encoded the thought when you go in your bedroom and then you go into, okay, when you're in the kitchen and you encode that thought, you try to open it up in a different context, the bedroom. So once you get back into the kitchen, it's the same context and it sparks retrieval, okay? All right. The classic example of this is if they ask you on the AP is that they had people learn a list of words underwater. But then the next day they tested them. And they brought half the group above ground and they asked the other group again with snorkels on underwater. They had them retrieve the words. And they found the group that learned the words underwater best retrieved them when they were underwater again, because it was the same context. Okay. So if your external environment can serve as a retrieval cue, so can your internal environment. So there's two types of this. It's called state-dependent memory, when a person's internal state can impede or retrieve survival, or impede or aid retrieval, sorry. When people are under the influence of drugs, they're best off remembering something when they're on those drugs again. So if you take antidepressants, when you learn something, once you're on antidepressants again, that will help you remember it because your internal environment is matched. If memory is state dependent, you need to be in the same state of consciousness. Another example of this is why we forget our dreams. So you are in REM when you have a dream, but you try to open it up in waking consciousness. So the further you get out of REM, the more difficult it is going to be to remember a dream. This is why we're best off remembering our dreams as soon as we wake up, because we just got out of that state. Mood congruence is another type of internal environment. So your mood acts as a trigger for memories. When we're in a good mood, that tends to conjure up good memories. You'll start telling stories of fun things in your life. When you're in a bad mood, that tends to trigger bad memories. So you might fixate on all the bad things in your life when you're in a bad mood, okay? Which will put you in a worse mood, which will pull up worse memories. Okay.
Mr. Moyal,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. When you talked about this in class, I remember you mentioned something like when we tell a story, like there's parts of the story that actually didn't happen, but
Yeah.
we still make it up.
I'll get there, yeah.
What is that called again?
Schema. Those are schema. That's memory construction. I'll talk about that, okay?
All right.
All right. When they ask about memory in the brain, they ask about two areas. They ask about the hippocampus and they ask about the cerebral cortex. Okay, so the hippocampus temporarily stores new memories. So this session right now that we're doing is going to sit on your hippocampus until you go to sleep. And during REM, it's going to transfer it to the cerebral cortex for permanent storage. So that's why you need to get a good sleep tonight, because if you want to remember this information, memory consolidation happens during REM sleep. If you damage your amnesia is any memory damage, memory due to brain damage. So when someone has amnesia, it can come in two forms. If you damage your hippocampus, you have anterograde amnesia. You can't form new memories. Because if the hippocampus right here in blue is a waiting room for new memories, let's say you have a stroke and you destroy this, or let's say you have traumatic brain injury and you destroy this structure, then it's like having a camera with no film in it. Information will come in, but it will immediately go out. So when you go to sleep at night, this will just wipe the slate clean. So the way you remember it is the A's. Anterograde after, anterograde after. You can't remember anything after the damage. AA. With retro, remember I said before with the interferences, retro means before. So if you damage your cerebral cortex, where the memories are already fixed, let's say you get a concussion and your brain swells, and all the memories that are in these grooves get lost, you have something called retrograde amnesia. It means you can't remember anything before the damage. So retro, old, you lose your old memories. Antero, new, after, you lose your memories after the damage. Does anyone have any questions on that?
So
Yeah, Jackie. What?
So retrograde amnesia isn't from damage of the hippocampus?
Not retrograde, because the hippocampus is intact. With retrograde amnesia, you can form new memories. So, like I said in class, with retrograde amnesia, you lose your past. But with anterograde amnesia, you lose your future, because you won't even remember that you have this damage. because you found that information after. You found out that information after you woke up from whatever damage it was. So when you go to bed again that night, that information's gone. So every day they're going to have to tell you that your brain is damaged again. So anterograde is much, much, much worse. You actually have to be institutionalized most of the time. But with retrograde, you can start piecing back together your life after the damage, right? Also, retrograde amnesia often comes back. So when people's brain swells and they lose memory, oftentimes when the swelling goes down, the memories return. And they usually return from oldest to newest. So let's say you lost the past 10 years, right? And you wake up from a coma and you think that you're 6. Usually it'll come back 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, and you'll usually get all the memories back close to the damage, but not including. Okay? Any questions? What?
Is anterograde like linked with Alzheimer's or no? Is that
No, because Alzheimer's chemical. It's not structural. This is you're damaging a structure. It's actually a great question, Jack. In these you're damaging brain structure, but with Alzheimer's, acetylcholine is rapidly decreasing, and acetylcholine holds memories. It's a chemical. So also think the A's: acetylcholine, Alzheimer's, acetylcholine, Alzheimer's.
What would you call that type of memory loss then?
That type of memory loss is degenerative memory loss. Like it's a degenerative disease.
So it's not considered damage though.
No, because that's what amnesia would be. That we would call the memory loss with Alzheimer's. We call dementia.
Got it.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Moyal.
Wait, oh, you can go ahead.
Go, Greg.
Sorry. Okay. What damage on what part of the brain causes the retrograde one?
Cerebral cortex. So if the hippocampus transfers memory, new learning, like this session right here, it holds it as a waiting room, like a waiting room in a doctor's office. And then when you go to sleep tonight, it gets admitted into the other room. The other room is the cerebral cortex. So all your memories are stored in these folds, in the chemical of acetylcholine. But if you were to damage the brain itself, you would have amnesia. And if those memories were already fixed, Grace, if they were already laid down, then that's retrograde. But if they're new memories that haven't formed yet, they haven't transferred, then that's antero. Okay? Now remember, yeah.
Sorry, Albin just texted me. He's in the waiting room.
Waiting room, huh?
Yes.
The bane of my existence, this waiting room. Okay, hold on a second. Mr. Waiting Room, where are you? Okay. Shouldn't it be here somewhere? One more. That is a chat. Anyone see anything that says waiting room 66? Oh, here we go. Admit. Okay. All right. Who's next? Anyone else have questions before I move on? Max, were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, yeah. What I was gonna ask, and I was gonna say something. So, like you said that with the retrograde, like when it comes back over time, right?
Mhm.
But you'll never remember the actual incident that caused the damage, right?
Yeah, that's actually the best part about it. Okay, like who wants to remember that?
'Cause, like after I've had like my concussions that I've had, like I still don't remember how I got them.
Yeah, that's because nothing is getting laid down while your brain is swelling like that. This is a good example of it. And guys, if you're doing therapy, like if you're doing abnormal psychology, I think Miss Crotty's classes are doing it. This is a good application of that. When people get electroconvulsive shock therapy, I know you guys think it's a barbaric thing.
Oh
And
boy.
What'd you say?
I said, oh boy.
Yeah, it's used to treat clinical depression. So ECT is a treatment of last resort. This is when the drugs don't work. This is when talk therapy doesn't work. So what they end up doing is they hook you up to a shock generator. They give you a sedative, and they run electrodes over your temples for about 8 seconds. And they do that about 6 times. And that's usually enough to reroute the serotonin. So we know that low levels of serotonin cause depression. And sometimes you can shock those serotonin systems back into working normally. But the byproduct of, and they ask this question a lot, a side effect of ECT or electroconvulsive shock therapy is retrograde amnesia. Usually people will lose up to 3 days before the treatment. Any questions on that? And that you usually don't get back. They actually shock those memories right out of your brain. But this is where I say it's a good thing, because who wants to remember the shock therapy, right? I mean, I think I wouldn't. All right, let's keep going.
I have a question.
Yep, Max.
Is this ECT therapy like very commonly used today?
You know what?
or not really?
Only not because people stigmatize it. Like I've said to my students, you know, if you have a family member suffering from depression and a doctor tells you, listen, the meds aren't working, but we have this technique that is sure to work because it has a very high success rate. Sure, doc, what is it? Well, it's electroconvulsive shock therapy. Absolutely not. People will they don't want to sign off on that for their family members, or they don't want it because they don't want to be the person that got shock treatments. You know, they stigmatize the treatment. Okay, and you know, for good reason. In the past, it was a pretty barbaric thing. All right, let's keep going. Source amnesia involves no damage at all. So source amnesia is sometimes called source confusion. And this is where you confuse an actual memory with a story that you heard, or a picture you saw, or a scene that you've imagined. So think about that for a second. I want you to think of a memory from childhood that may be just a picture you're remembering, not a true memory. Or it may be a video you saw of yourself, which you think you remember it, but you can't possibly. Or it might be a story that your parents told about you 1,000 times, where you think you remember it, but you don't. Okay? All right. This is called the information processing model of memory. So if they ask you about the information processing model, this is what they're talking about. We encode things into sensory memory, and then we further encode them into what's called working memory. This used to be called short term. And then we further encode into long-term memory. But if you look at this model, things coming in our senses can go into memory, or it can be thrown out. So most things are thrown out right at your senses. About 99% of information is lost right here. 1% will make it into working memory, and even less of what you experience will make it into long-term memory. So if anyone's trying to understand this model, these are all levels of encoding, okay? What you need to know about these different levels of encoding is the capacity and the duration of each of these systems. When I say capacity, I'm talking about the amount of information that it can hold. When I say duration, I'm talking about how much time you can hold it for. So let's start with sensory memory. Sensory memory has a very large capacity and a very short duration. So most people have what's called a photographic memory for a split second. We call that iconic memory. So if you look right here, information coming in your eyes are held in sensory memory for a fraction of a second, and then they fade. But if something makes it past your iconic memory, it'll get into this system. Echoic memory is in your ears, and that's slightly longer. So if you look, echoic memory hangs out in your ears for about 3 to 4 seconds, and then it's thrown out. So remember, icons you can see, echoes you can hear. If they ask you about iconic memory, it's visual. Icons you can see. If they ask you about echoic memory, it's auditory. Echoes you can hear. Like I tell my students, I have a better name for echoic memory. Do you guys remember what I said?
The what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Chloe. Yeah, the what yeah phenomenon, right? You've experienced it, right, Chloe? Hey, you going to Mr. Moyal's extra help today? What? Yeah. Okay. So when someone asks you that question, are you going to extra help? Your ears will hold that for a few seconds. So you go, what? And then before they have a chance to say it again, you go, yeah. You're always answering. And do you remember, Chloe, the what yeah's younger brother?
No, I don't think so.
The what
It's
no?
what no.
The what no? Yeah. Okay. What? No, I'm not going. But see, why did you say what? Because you're processing. You're processing the sound, and your ears are going to hold that for 3 to 4 seconds. And please, someone help me get that in a psych textbook. Okay, we'll make a lot of money. And by we, I mean
I told you, Mr. Moyal.
we'll make a lot of money.
Working on it.
I mean, I'll make a lot of money. Okay. All right. Let's keep going.
We'll split it even.
Yeah, we're not going to split it even, but we can still split it. All right, let's keep going. If something makes it into working memory has a capacity of 7 items plus or minus 2. So if any time in the test they ask you about the magic number 7, the magical number 7, that's the capacity of short-term memory. So if you look, working memory or short-term memory lasts about 18 to 20 seconds. It allows you to remember the beginning of a paragraph when you're reading by the time you get to the end of the paragraph. It allows you to remember a transaction if you go into a pizza place and you buy a pizza and a slice of pizza and a soda costs you $4.50 and you give the guy $10. Working memory allows you to hold that transaction long enough to get your change, which would be $6.50. Hold on, I got an electrician here. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Yeah, hold on a minute. Okay. Hold on. Yeah, I'm coming. What's up? I'll take good news. Good news? Okay. Yeah. So what is that? I'm going to say under 5,000. I don't know what. Somewhere in that, from probably about 2,500 up to 5,000. It all depends on what you want to do as upgrade. Yeah. I mean, that's basic steel tank. You can put a basic steel tank back in there. It'll be fine. You can update it to what they call the gravy. That's a tank within a tank. And then you can go over the rough. That's another tank within a tank. Top of it, that at least it has a, it has a tank inside itself. All right. But just to, put it on your, to-do list. So other than that, it's running like a champ. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Yeah. Take it easy. Take care now. Thank you. I'm back.
Welcome back, Mr. Moyal.
What's up, guys? So, all right. So, working memory, 7 items plus or minus 2. So let's go to this model. The way you keep something in working memory is you just say it over and over and over again. This is called maintenance rehearsal. So sometimes we call this rote repetition. It's like Spanish teachers making you go ah, e, o, u like 1,000 times. That will hold something in working memory, but according to this model, what happens when you stop rehearsing?
You forget.
Yep, it goes this path. It gets thrown out. You can also increase the capacity of working memory by chunking. So chunking is just remembering things in chunks. So for example, a phone number is 9 numbers, right? What is it? Wait, 6? No, 10 numbers. But we don't remember it as 10 individual numbers. We'll remember 516-352-0521. So we usually remember a phone number in 4 chunks. The area code, the first 3 numbers, and then 2 chunks at the end. But chunking will increase the capacity of memory. Chunking is so effective that people can remember out pi 20,000 places. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those people, but It's pretty amazing. Okay? Another type of rehearsal, if you look at this model, hold on. Let me go back. It's called elaborative rehearsal right here. So the way we elaborate something is usually by doing a memory trick that will encode it into long-term memory. So an example of elaborative rehearsal would be a mnemonic device. It's not just simple rote repetition. Like PEMDAS is a good example. With PEMDAS, you're chunking 6 things down to 1. So with PEMDAS, you have 6 items: parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. But you can remember that all in one chunk. When you're remembering notes on a scale, on a treble clef, every good boy does fine. One sentence will give you all of those letters, or yes, the letters for the notes. And the spaces, FACE, face, will give you one. It'll take 4 items and chunk it down to 1, but it will also elaborate on it. So mnemonics always add meaning. I forgot the one for conversions. Was it Katie hit David until David cried mommy? Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right, let's keep going. The last system is long-term memory, okay? And there's different types of long-term memory. So this chart right here is very. Why is everyone trying to kill me? Okay, now what happened to, all right. Get this out of here. Oh, God.
You were using Chrome, right?
Yeah, but it's
So
behind.
click on the Chrome thing. It says Google Chrome there.
Where does it say? Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Max. All right.
Anytime.
So here we go. There's 2 types of long-term memory. There's memories you can talk about, and there's memories that you can't talk about. So memories you can talk about are called declarative. So we call those explicit memories, memories that you can consciously recall. Okay, hold on. What's happening here? Actually, I'll do this. All right. Memories you can't talk about are things you know, but you just know them. So we call that implicit. So when something's implicit, you know it, but you can't really talk about it. When something is explicit, you know it and you can talk about it. So when you can declare something, you can talk about it. That's what they mean by declarative. You can vocalize it. Non-declarative means you can't talk about it, but maybe you can show someone how to do it. So a good example of implicit memory is something called procedural memory, memory of skills. So if I ask someone how to swing a bat, they'll go like this, okay? They're not going to tell you how to swing a bat. They're going to show you. If I ask someone, how do you type on a computer? They'll do this. So that's procedural. And since motor patterns are stored in the cerebellum, that's where those memories are. If you were to suffer a stroke in the cerebellum, or if you were to take traumatic brain injury, they would have to teach you how to walk again, how to eat again, how to talk, how to type again, how to play piano again if you play it, okay? How to swing a tennis racket. I didn't go over this in class, but I'm going to go over it now. Priming is when prior experiences influence memory. So in priming, usually you're primed with something, and I'll explain what that means. When they show people, when they flash people on a screen pictures of animals, and then they ask them to write words. So they'll ask them to write words. They'll say, spell the word gun, right? And people will go G-U-N. And this is after they've been flashed a whole bunch of animals. Alice, I'm sorry. Am I keeping you up?
No, I'm sorry. I just didn't get a lot of sleep. I'm sorry.
I know. You know what? Sometimes I bore myself too. Here we go. So they flashed you a whole bunch of animals, and one of them was a bunny, right? And then they tell you to spell things. So they say, spell mirror, M-I-R-R-O-R. Spell gun, G-U-N. Spell book, B-O-O-K. Spell sled, S-L-E-D. Spell hair. And people will, like a disproportionate amount of people will write H-A-R-E. Is that an unusual way to spell hair? If you ask, if you ask people in a normal day to spell hair, are most people going to spell it H-A-I-R?
Yes.
When they've been primed with those animals, it causes a lot more of them to implicitly or without conscious recall change their spelling. So they've been primed. Okay? All right. Hold on a second. I got to go back. All right. Hold on. Oliver, look who it is. I got a hair. Hey, Jessica, you there? You see Oliver?
Yes, I
Look-
see the bunny.
Look at his foot. Look at his foot. It's like an Ugg. He hates this, by the way. Look at him. Hey, bud. All right.
He's so friendly for a bunny. I know so many bunnies that just aren't friendly.
Well, you see bunnies right out in the wild, don't you? This thing's like a Gucci.
I used to have one, but it was like so not friendly.
Yeah, no, my wife is like the bunny whisperer. I don't know. All right, let's
Gucci
keep
the
going.
rabbit.
Yeah, well, she tamed me, right? So, okay. Let's let's keep going. Explicit memory are memories that you can consciously recall. So one side of this is called semantic memory. This is your memory of general knowledge. Semantic memory is stored in what are called semantic networks. So if you look at this, this is how our facts are stored in our brain. And they're very easy to get to, and they're very accurate. So if I ask you something that's factual, like if I ask people, you know, what is the periodic symbol for iron, right? Most people can get to that relatively quickly if they took chem. What is it?
Fe.
Yeah, I don't know why that was my favorite. I have no idea. I don't know why I have a favorite element. If you ask people, you know, who were the Allies in World War II, that they could probably get to it pretty quickly. So that's what we call semantic knowledge, right? Episodic memory, you can also talk about. So episodic memory are personally experienced events. So with semantic memories, you can always lead into them with, I know that. I know that Jefferson was the third president of the United States. I know that AU is the periodic symbol for gold. I know that 9/11 was a terrorist attack, right? I know that Justin Bieber is very famous, okay? With episodic memories, the way you usually trigger these is, I remember when. I remember when I first rode a bicycle. I remember when I graduated from middle school. I remember when my brother, you know, broke my teeth with a baseball bat. Okay. So episodic memories are things that happen to us. A very specific type of episodic memory is a flashbulb memory. Do you guys remember what that is? I didn't talk about them with you, but I gave you a homework on it.
Yes.
What's a flashbulb memory?
It's the memory that. Oh my God! Let me check. I don't know.
Alice, go for it. Alice.
It's when you remember something really distinctly. It's like you can bring it up right in your mind, I think.
A flashbulb memory is a memory that's burned into your memory because it's emotional. So for a lot of people, 9/11 is a flashbulb memory. It was a very emotional day, and it only had to happen once, and we remember everything about that day. I could study Spanish vocabulary for months and not remember as much about that as I remember about 9/11 because it was seared into my brain. And that's why it's called flashbulb. It's like a flash went off and it just burned that memory into your synapses. The thing about flashbulb memories is we encode a lot about that day that we normally wouldn't encode. So when people talk about 9/11, they know what they were wearing. They know who they were talking to when they found out. They know exactly where they were standing. They remember what color, you know, shoes they were wearing and stuff like that. Okay? All right. Let's talk about how we remember episodes. They often ask about this, guys. It's called reconstructive memory. When you have like I told the kids in my classes, I want you to pull up a memory of elementary school, any memory of elementary school. When I ask you to do that, all different parts of your brain fire together and put that memory back from scratch. And because it pulls it apart and puts it back from scratch, it's imperfect. So the memories we have are actually really inaccurate because every time we think about it, we reconstruct it from its basic parts from all different areas of the brain, and then we pull it apart when we're not thinking about it. And then the next time we put it back together, we change it a little bit. Every time we talk about a memory, we change the memory a little bit until finally we're so far away. This is why if you've ever been with someone who was telling a story about somewhere you've been, and they would like you were at a party with your friend, and all of a sudden they're telling a story, and you look at them and go, "No, that's not how it happened." But chances are they weren't intentionally lying. It's just because reconstructive memory of episodes are very inaccurate. Okay? Does anyone have questions on that? All right, so I asked this in my class. How would the following types of memory come into a game of tennis? Procedural memory, how to swing the racket. Semantic memory, the rules. And episodic memory, who served last or who won the last match. Okay? All right, let's keep going. This is really important. This is often asked about. A woman named Elizabeth Loftus studied eyewitness recall. And she found that if people were given a different verb, they had a different memory of the accident. So some people were asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed each other? Some people were asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? And some people were asking were asked the question, how fast were the cars going when they contacted each other? And what Elizabeth Loftus found is when people were given misinformation, like an aggressive verb, it changed their memory of the accident. They estimated different speeds. So the people that heard smashed on the average said they were going 10 miles an hour faster than the people that heard the word contacted. So that's really, really significant, and especially in a courtroom. Okay, if you ask people leading questions, you can affect their memory of an event. Okay, all right. Oh, this they've asked about recently, and I haven't spoken about this in my classes, guys. Prospective memory is memory that involves remembering to perform a planned action in the future. So prospective memory are usually memories of common daily life tasks that range from simple to extreme life or death situations. So prospective memory is just something you need to do in the future. For example, let's say you take medication every day at the same time. That's an example of prospective memory. And that could be a life or death situation if you forget to take the medication. Remembering to do your homework is another example of prospective memory because it's something you need to do in the future. Or remembering to turn a heater off before you leave the house, which could be a life or death situation, right? So all of these are examples of something that you need to do in the future, a planned action for the future. Got it? Yeah? Okay. All right. So, all right. So let me do a piece of cognition real quick, and then I want to look at some FRQs. Okay? Does anyone have any questions on memory? That's memory. Nobody? Everybody good? Okay. Cognition. What is the most effective? Oh, go, Alice. I'm sorry.
About perspective memory.
Yeah.
Is there any situation where you lose your perspective memory?
No, because but you could just forget to do something that you need to do in the future. Like, let's say, Alice, I take the same route home every day, but this one day I have to stop and get milk. Okay, so that's perspective memory. I need to do something in the future. But let's say because I take the same route home every day, I just go on autopilot and I just end up coming home. So I forgot what I needed to do. Okay, but it's not what was your question? Sorry.
It was if you ever lose your perspective memory.
Yeah, it's not about losing it. It's just, hey, a lot of people forget. Ask my wife. I forget stuff every day that I have to do. Right? Drives her crazy. Like for example, last week I forgot to take out the recycling. Okay, kill me. Big deal. No, honey, no, I'm all right. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's keep going.
Mr. Moyal,
Yes, sir. Alvin.
would anterograde amnesia affect that?
Of course, yeah, totally. Oh, totally. But that's an extreme situation. But it's a very good connection you made. But that would be an extreme brain damage situation. In normal speaking, you can't really lose this, okay? But you do forget. All right. So there are different strategies for problem solving.
Mr. Moyal,
Yeah.
can you explain the framing effect?
I mean, I was gonna get to it. Do you want me, you want me to do it now?
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's coming right here. Why was it at that point of the, was it at that point of the outline?
No, I still confused. I confused it with the misinformation effect.
Oh, okay. So let me just get through problem solving. I'm going to get there really quickly. An algorithm is a step-by-step procedure that guarantees a solution. So if I gave you an anagram to solve, right? We know that this is bird, but you can go through all the different combinations and get to bird from these letters. The good thing about algorithms is they will always get you to the right answer. The bad thing about algorithms is they take long. So unless you're a computer, algorithms can take a long time. A heuristic is the opposite. It's a rule of thumb. So it's not step by step, it's just a mental shortcut. So an example of a heuristic in problem solving is I before E except after C. That's a spelling heuristic. It's a shortcut, it's a rule of thumb. Most of the time it'll work. So the good thing about heuristics is they're fast, right? I before E except after C doesn't take a long time. And it's accurate most of the time, but there are words that don't follow the rule. So the drawbacks is sometimes it will lead you astray. One type of heuristic is called an availability heuristic. It's a mental shortcut through which judgments are based on what's available in memory. So I've used this with my classes, and guys, I'm sorry if you're in my class and you keep getting the same examples. But if I ask someone what's more dangerous, softball or football, most people will say football, and they'll be right, because what's available in memory is I have more information about football injuries in my head than I do about softball injuries. I hear more about concussions in football than I do about softball. So that's what's available. If I ask people, you know, which country has a larger population, Indonesia or Israel, some people might say Israel because they hear more about Israel. So the bad thing about availability heuristics is they can be affected by sensationalized news. Like if I ask people what's more dangerous, I don't know, coronavirus or cancer. Most people would say cancer, but more people died last year by coronavirus, right? But what people have available in memory is that cancer is actually a really dangerous thing. A representativeness heuristic is a mental shortcut that involves judging whether something belongs to a category based on similarity to that category. So with these, what we do is we tend to discount probability. So guys, I know that's a clumsy definition that like confuses you, but it's actually really easy. I told my classes, you come into a building and you see, Jessica, where are you? Okay, you answer this one, Jessica, because you're not in my class. You come into a building and you see an old man in a suit. Is he more likely a principal or is he more likely a teacher?
I would say principal.
And most people would say principal, Jessica, because he's representative of what a principal should look like. A principal should be older. A principal should be formally dressed. So you make that mental shortcut. And most of the time you'd be right. But why is it more likely that he's not the principal? Because probability says, Jessica, are there 2 or more male teachers in the school that wear suits on a regular basis?
I think there's like 1 or 2, but like
Right.
I don't see like it's common. It's not common.
It's not, but as long as there's more than one, that guy that you just saw is more likely a teacher. Do you see why? Look, Mr. Emilio wears a suit. Mr. or Dr. Manuel wears a suit. Mr. Redito wears a suit. Mr. Duggan wears a suit. So probability says that person you just met is most likely not the principal, but he's representative of what a principal should look like. Here's another example. Linda's 31, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy in college. As a student, she was deeply concerned with discrimination and social issues. Is Linda a banker, or is she a bank teller and a feminist? Most people will go, she's a feminist bank teller because of these qualities. But what is there more of in this world? Feminist bank tellers or bank tellers? Bank tellers. So she's more likely a bank teller, but people will make that error because she's more representative of what a feminist bank teller would be. Okay? You know what?
Mr. Moyal,
I wonder how many feminist bank tellers there actually are, since I've never thought about it. Yes, Max.
but going back to the example that you said about like the whole like suit thing and like if it's a teacher or principal, right?
Yeah.
But then like usually wouldn't you assume that someone that's wearing a suit may not only be a principal, but someone that has like authority or power? If you look at it, like some
Max,
department chairs wear suits.
Max, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but when I tell people, like, let's say I'm at a party and people go, "Hey, Dave, what do you do?" And I go, "I'm a teacher." You know what they say to me, Max?
What?
Yeah, what are you, a gym teacher? Because I don't know. Am I representative of what a gym teacher should look like? See, it's hard.
I mean, you're a chill guy, so.
No, but it's
yeah.
Are gym teachers chill guys? No, but see, I don't know what it is, you know, but people often ask me that question. But that could be representativeness heuristic. They could look at me, size me up, and go, "Hey, this guy seems like he's a gym teacher," right? I can't even ask you guys because you know too much about me to even think of me as a gym teacher, right? But I guess you have to say if you were neutral. All right, impediments to problem solving are things that slow down problem solving. So mental sets, fixation, they're pretty self-explanatory. One type of fixation is called functional fixedness, the inability to see a new use for a household object. So this is a problem with functional fixedness. How could you mount a candle on a bulletin board using only these items? And we said a lot of people can't do this because, Chloe, what's the solution? You remember it, right?
Take out the matches, then tack the matchbox to the bulletin board, and then stand the candle inside.
Yep. But see, most people can't do this because they become fixated on the function of the matchbox as holding matches. Honey, did I forget to take out the recycling last week?
Yes.
You believe that? I know, I forget something. I don't know how that would even happen.
What did I see at the boiler?
It's okay, Mr. Moyal. We all forget sometimes.
All right, it's all right. My wife is just in my personal space right now, you know. She's gonna hit me. Okay. Confirmation bias is when you tend to only look for evidence that confirms what you already believe. And we said mostly people do this in politics. Yeah. No, he's gone. Maybe he's sleeping in it. Okay. So we said people often do this in politics. Right? Alice? Like when people are arguing politics, do they only use examples to confirm what they already believe?
Yes.
Yeah. So if people want to say that Donald Trump was a good president, they will cite only financial things and other things that he's known for doing well, you know, peace in the Middle East and that kind of stuff. But they will ignore some other big things that might weaken their side. Okay? All right. Preeti, where are you? Did you ask me about framing?
Yeah.
Okay, the framing effect. The framing effect is when people react to something based on how it's presented. In other words, how it's framed. For example, you can look at January 6th, and some people will frame that as an insurrection. Some people will say that was an attack on the United States, and that will affect the way they think about that event. But other people will frame it as free speech, that those people were exercising their First Amendment right when they protested Congress. But depending on how it's framed, as a First Amendment protest or as an armed insurrection against the United States, it will affect the way people think about the event. So framing, so an easy example of it is right here. 93% of graduate students registered early when there was a penalty for registering late, but only 67% registered early when they said there was a discount. So when you framed it as a penalty, it affected more people. When you framed it as a discount, it affected less people. But it's the same thing. It's just worded differently. When you ask people about censorship, they don't agree with it. But when you ask people about government regulation, they're for it. So just framing it in these two types of words changes the way people think about it. And if you remember, that's called linguistic relativity. Let me show you a few FRQs. So I want you to read this FRQ. Okay. So actually, I'll read it with you. It says, in a study, researchers use a photograph taken from a public park to examine how people perceive, learn, and remember information. In the photograph, a woman is standing near a man who's seated on a park bench. The woman appears to be shouting at the man. Participants in the study are exposed to this photograph for 10 seconds. And then they're shown, each for 10 seconds, several other photographs of people interacting. When all of the photographs have been shown, the participants are asked about what they saw in the public park photograph. A significant number of participants described the man as being an aggressor in an apparent disagreement with the woman. So that's a pretty big lead-in to this question. Now it says, describe how each of the following concepts helps explain the perception of the participants. Be sure to begin by defining each concept in psychological terms. So remember, the rule for FRQ writing is define, explain, apply. So this should be 5 paragraphs long. Each one of these should be its own paragraph. No intro, no conclusion. Now, we don't have you do this in class, but at the AP, underline the term when you write it. You're not allowed to do any outlining. No bullets, no A, no Roman numerals, no nothing. But when you're writing about a term, signal to the writer with just an underline. So the way that how do you start this essay out?
All right, so I guess here it talks about schema, right? So you'd say schema is, and then you'd define it.
Yes. So this is how I would start this out. Schema are mental representations of objects and events and people, right? Karate, Cerise students, did you go over schema? No? All right, so a schema, like if we have a schema of a dog, right? We have fur, we have 4 legs, we have paws, we have cute, we have what else? We have all the different aspects of a dog, and that's our schema of a dog, right? So you say a schema is a mental representation of a person, of an event, or of an object. Schema affect our memory and perception of things. So now you're explaining. So what would you write about, guys, based here? Anyone want to go out on a limb? Look, remember, participants are showed the photograph of a woman who's screaming at a guy, right, in a public park. And then they're showed other photographs. But when after all the photographs are shown, they're asked about the public park one. And a significant number of people make a mistake. They say the man was the aggressor. So how could schema cause people to make that mistake? Yes, Alice?
If your schema of a man is aggressive and hostile, then you're probably going to mix it up.
Yeah, so this would be, to me, a scorable paragraph, a perfect scorable paragraph. A schema is a mental representation of a person, a place, or an event. Schema are affected by our experiences. So if in most people's experience, men are supposed to be more aggressive than women, if people have a schema that men are aggressive and women are more passive, then that would affect their memory of the public park photograph and cause them to make an error saying the woman was more, that the man was the aggressor when actually the woman was the aggressor. Do you understand? Retroactive interference. How does that come into play here? So you define it. Retroactive interference is when new learning interferes with old learning. This can happen with passwords, this can happen with locker combinations, but in this case, it happened with the photographs. People were showed the public park photograph. Then they were shown other photographs. The other photographs, or the newer photographs, or the more recent photographs, interfered with their memory of the previous photograph, which was the which would be retroactive interference. Do you get that? If you see a photograph and then they show you other ones, your memory of that first photograph could be affected by the later ones. So you forget what was in the older one. Got it? A representativeness heuristic. So,
Mr. Moyal,
yeah, who's that?
Kelvin. So is retroactive, I forgot, is retroactive interference where the old memory
Is
affects
forgotten.
the
It's forgotten. It's forgotten.
Oh,
Yeah, so always ask yourself, look, listen to me for a second. Retro we see with two things, retroactive interference and retrograde amnesia. But if you ask yourself the same question for either the amnesias or the interference, what is being forgotten? What is being forgotten? In retrograde amnesia, the old memories are being forgotten. In retroactive interference, the old information is being forgotten. Okay, you get it? So if you stick with what is being forgotten, retro will always bring you back to old, okay? And it works for the amnesias and the interferences. Got it? Okay, so with representativeness heuristic, remember if people make mistakes, like Jessica, the old man in the high school the old man in the suit is a principal when he's more likely a teacher. How would representativeness heuristic come into play here? This is where I don't really like this essay because this is like schema. Representativeness heuristic says that if people tend to think that men are more aggressive than women, because that's more representative of how a man would be, then when viewing the photographs, they might make a mistake and say the man was the aggressor instead of the woman, because that's more representative of what men do. But those are like two bullets that pretty much say the same thing, so I don't really like it.
So you would just, in that case, if you were given, like, let's say this on the AP exam, can you repeat what you say on one of them?
Yeah, I mean, you can. It's slightly different because schema is a mental construct of something, and a representativeness heuristic is a mental shortcut, you know? So they're slightly different, but it's the same error, you know, because your representativeness heuristic is based on your schema. Got it? All right, confirmation bias. Anyone want to try it? Yes, Alice. Actually, Chloe. Alice, you went last time. Go, Chloe.
Would it be like your interpretation of your memory to fit in like an existing belief that like men are like more aggressive?
Yeah, but it's more than that, Chloe. Like you were headed on the right track. There was a little thing that would have made you miss the point here. With confirmation bias, you only look for evidence to confirm what you already believe. Do you get it? So let's say, and this is where it's almost the same thing too. Let's say people think men are more aggressive than women. Then they're going to look for evidence in the photograph to confirm what they already believe. And then they would make an error. Do you get it? All right, last but not least, framing. How is this framed that would affect people's judgments? So you could do framing for the study itself. You could say the way that the study is framed is more likely going to make people make an error because you're showing people multiple photographs back to back. So just framing a study that way is going to affect people's memory of the study. Of course, information is going to interfere from picture to picture. Or you could say the picture itself showing a confrontation at a park between genders is setting people up because men tend to be more aggressive than women. So just showing people having an argument in a park might be framing it in a way to funnel people into thinking men are the aggressive person. But this is a bad essay. Most kids who got this year just ran out screaming like the gym was on fire. Okay, I mean, you know, it was one of those. But nobody did any worse. When they give a difficult question like this, which this is a difficult question, but when they give a difficult question like this, usually the curve is off the charts. You know, it's usually, if you guys are finding it to be difficult, then what are people in the rest of the country finding it, right? Okay, let me show you another one. Does anyone have any questions? All right, this is another essay. So, hold on. Take a look at this essay. This is very characteristic of a psych essay. You're almost guaranteed to have an essay that's going to look like this. And why do I say this? because it has things from many different chapters. So if you look, after image effect, we didn't do yet. That's sensation and perception. Availability heuristic, that's cognition. Ethnocentrism, that's personality. Groupthink, that's social psychology. Lack of object permanence is developmental psychology. Non-random assignment of research participants is research methods. Optimistic explanatory style is personality again. And then proactive interference is cognition again. So when, yes, Chloe?
Since there's so many terms, do you suggest like combining them into paragraphs?
No, I don't.
Paragraph,
Unless, like the best thing I could say about organization, Chloe, is look at your essay. Like let's say you don't write a lot for after image, you only have like 2 sentences, then combine another one. But just make sure you underline the term as you start a new one. And you only have to do that once. Like you don't have to write underline after image every time you mention it. But as you start a new term, just to indicate to the reader that you're starting a new term, underline that term. But I personally like the organization of a bullet for each paragraph. But when you step away from that essay, it should look like an essay. Don't make it look like it's just like a list of things. Indent and have an introductory sentence and then explanations and applications. So, and also, Chloe and everyone else, do it in order. I mean, don't do it in order. You don't have to. So when they give you, this is 8 terms, chances are you're not going to get to all of them. And don't bug out about that. Hardly any people do. But when it comes time to write these essays, do the ones you know first. Knock them out. Okay? Like get the point and get out of there. And then move on to the next one. So if you look at this, don't try to sit here and juggle around after image effect if you've never heard of it. Because you're going to waste time and you're not going to get the bullet. So just move right into the ones that you like first. So let's look at this essay. Does anyone have any questions about format or content or anything like that or style? I know I'm hearing a lot from my students, but if you're not my student, what was that? I'm sorry.
I have a question about like content, but like not this. Like,
okay. What's up?
Can you, I mean, I don't know if this falls under like, I think it does because it's on the test, but like, can you go over like the elements of language?
Yeah, but let me just finish with this essay and then I'll go into that. Okay? I'm not going to go over this whole thing. But let's just do the ones that we talked about. It says, describe a specific example that clearly demonstrates an understanding of how each of the concepts can lead to an inaccurate perception, cognition, or conclusion. Each example must include an explanation of the relationship between the concept and the inaccuracy. So, with availability heuristic, the way you start this out is, an availability heuristic is a problem-solving strategy or a mental shortcut where we use what's available in memory to make a judgment. Okay, now you've defined what availability heuristic. Now you have to explain how that leads to inaccuracy. So you could say, for example, more people will conclude that that football is more dangerous than badminton because what's available in their memory is that more people get hurt during football than badminton, right? Because they hear more about football injuries than they hear about badminton injuries. You can say this can lead people astray because if certain things are sensationalized, people will overestimate the threat. So if the news says that there have been several shark attacks, people will overestimate the danger of sharks because that's what's available in their memory, right? Or remember in class when we said what kills more people in a given year, accidents or strokes, and everyone said accidents, but in fact strokes kill more people in a given year? You can use that as an example too, okay? When they talk about proactive interference, you have to describe proactive interference and then say how it leads to an inaccuracy. So you say proactive interference is when one thing in memory interferes with another thing in memory. With proactive interference, the new thing is being forgotten. So you don't have to say thing. So you could say the new information is being forgotten. For example, if people have two locker combinations and they experience proactive interference, the old one will interfere with the new one, and they're more likely to forget the new combination. So it's as easy as that. I hope what you're seeing here is you're only as good as your vocabulary. So the more vocabulary terms you know, the easier this section of the test will be. Okay? Any questions? I know it's scary, guys. I know there are a lot of terms. Yes, Chloe.
If we like choose like perception as our what we're relating the terms to, should we stick with that, or is it okay to jump around?
No, it's actually you should jump around because some of these will lead to like for example, conclusion. Groupthink. Do you remember groupthink that when lots of people are making a decision, oftentimes it leads to this phenomenon of groupthink? Remember, we blamed it on the shuttle disaster. The space shuttle blew up because the people at NASA all suppressed their dissent at launching that day, even though some of them knew it was a really dangerous condition to launch in. There was so much pressure to conform to the group and to be harmonious and to suppress their dissent that they made this horrible decision, and the Challenger ended up blowing up. JFK with the Bay of Pigs invasion, all of his cabinet said, sure, this is a good idea because they were afraid to go against him. But what that gave him was a false sense that it was a good idea, and it was a total military disaster, right? The invasion of Iraq by George Bush, same thing. He put all Republicans in his cabinet, so they all refused to disagree with him. And it turned out to be a major military blunder, right? So for that, Chloe, it could only be conclusion. Okay, groupthink is about decision making. So the conclusion that the group makes is a bad one because they suppress their dissent in the name of harmony. Got it? Lack of object permanence would also, you could use conclusion or cognition, right? That if a child has a bottle that goes under a blanket, it will cry and protest instead of look for it because it lacks object permanence. Remember? Out of sight is out of mind.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So let me go back to language. Okay. They ask about this a lot. Linguistic relativity says language strongly affects or fully determines the way its native speakers perceive and reason about the world. So, remember, Benjamin Whorf uses snow for this. He says the Eskimos have all these different words for snow. They have a rich vocabulary to describe snow conditions because that's their world. But he says because they have a rich vocabulary, they can perceive differences in the snow that we don't perceive because we don't have the language to speak about it. Arabs have 6,000 words to describe the camel, but because they have a rich vocabulary about camels, they can see differences in camels that we can't see. This has been disproven. Okay, so see where it says this theory is correct, but it's limited. We know that language affects the way we think about things. For those of you that aren't in my class, I use the example, what would be more attractive to a dieter? 99% fat-free or 1% fat? So we do know that this theory is correct, that most people would rather see fat-free than see fat, even if they know it's the same thing, 1% fat or 99% fat-free. But the language will influence how dieters think about the product.
Okay.
But what they found out is that people can actually see differences in snow, even if they don't have the words for it. We can see those same differences that the Eskimos can see, but we just can't talk about it the way they can. We can see these little intricate differences in the camel, even though we don't have 6,000 words to describe it. Okay?
Wait, Mr. Moyal,
Yes, sir, Albert.
I'm Rusal.
Oh, who is it?
Rusal.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You sounded like someone else.
So wouldn't like that fat-free thing be like the framing that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, linguistic relativity is a type of framing. You know, how you frame something with language makes a difference. Excellent connection. Who's your teacher?
You.
Oh, wait, who is this?
Rusam.
Oh, Rusong. Okay, all right, I'm sorry. I thought you said something else. Sorry, dude. Yeah, I remember you. 7th period. Great teacher. I mean, great student. Green background in your room all the time. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. All right, one last thing, okay? You want to go over the other aspects of language, right? Hold on. Do I have them here? No, I don't seem to have it here. Jackie, was that you, Jackie?
Yeah,
What did you want to go over? Was it phonemes, more?
Like that we did today.
All right, I'll go over that quickly. Okay. Okay. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so when it comes to language, languages have 3 components. They have phonemes, morphemes, and syntax. So remember, phonemes are just sounds, right? Hold on a second. So phonemes are just the smallest unit of sound. Like if I take the word cats, it has 4 sounds in it. Ka, a, t, s, okay? Cats. So if you take those 4 distinct sounds, those make up cats. And remember, English has 40 phonemes. We have 26 letters, but then we have combinations like ch and sh and th, okay? Morphemes are the smallest meaningful unit. So if I take the word cats, even though it has 4 phonemes, it has 2 meaningful units, cat and s, because cat and cats doesn't mean the same thing. So when I add the suffix s and make it plural, I change the meaning of the word. So remember the M's, morpheme, meaning, morpheme, meaning. If you change the meaning, then, or if you change a morpheme, or you add a morpheme, you change the meaning. For example, the word believe is 1 morpheme, believe. But if I say believable, I've added a morpheme. Believe and believable don't mean the same thing. So just by adding able on the back, I've changed the meaning. And if I add un to the front, unbelievable, then I've also just changed the meaning. So the word unbelievable has 3 morphemes, unbelievable. Okay? Grammar, you guys know what grammar is. It's just a system of rules that govern words. So one example of grammar is syntax. So I showed you this sentence today. Snow, sudden floods, melting cause. We know that this sentence is wrong because it has the wrong syntax. The grammar is off. So it's not that these aren't real words. It's just it's not a real sentence because it doesn't have the correct grammar. It should be melting snows cause sudden floods. Okay? All right. The big thing, and I can show you where this comes up. Okay, so let me show you something quickly, guys. All right. AP review. No, not that. Okay. Okay. So if you go into AP Psych review and you go into one of my first posts, hold on, this one, AP FRQ questions, right? I want you to look, and I put a lot in here, guys. Actually, that's just research. That's not a lot. Sorry. AP review. No. What am I doing here? What did I do? All right, hold on a second. This is important. So FRQ. I'll put this in. Oh, but I have people's work in here. Hold on. Okay, no, not that one. Okay, here we go. All right, I'm going to put this file in here in the classroom. So if you look, these are the guidelines for writing FRQs. These are the style tips and these are the content tips. Okay. Now, if you look at this essay right here, hold on. Here we go. This was an uncommon essay, but it's not off the menu. So I want you to look at it. It says, psychologists conduct research to investigate controversial issues. Consider the following. The value of diagnostic labeling. So for those of you in Ms. Crotty's class, you're doing this now. For those of you in my class, we're doing this next week. So if it seems like, oh my God, we didn't learn this yet, we didn't, but we're doing it next week, so don't sweat it. So this just means labeling someone with a disorder. So let's say we label someone with ADD or ADHD. So it says psychologists conduct research to investigate controversial issues. Consider the following: the value of diagnostic labeling, children's acquisition of language, and the explanation of hypnosis. We're also doing that next week. So it says, describe the opposing points of view on each of these issues. Your description must provide one argument on each side of the controversy. For each issue, choose a point of view to support. Use evidence from psychological research to justify why you think this point of view is correct. So I know you're looking at this going, oh my God, that's a scary essay. But it's not, because if you look, we just did children's acquisition of language in class, and you're being tested on it tomorrow. So what are the opposing viewpoints on how children acquire language? What were we talking about today? Remember, I gave you Skinner, I gave you Bandura, I gave you Chomsky.
What I like vividly remember was you explaining how they go from incoherent, like babbling, to being able. Okay.
The debate is nature versus nurture. Are we born with language? Or is it something socialized into us through our environment? So Jackie, we'll go back and learn it. This is the debate right here, okay? Are we pre-wired to learn language? So everybody has studied B.F. Skinner, okay? Skinner says children learn things and people learn things, everything. He's a radical behaviorist. So he says everything comes in through the environment. He came up with the idea of operant conditioning, that we associate a behavior and its consequence. So in the nature-nurture debate, Skinner takes a fully nurture approach. He says children start to speak mama, dada, baba, bobo, okay? And as they do that, the people around them get really excited. They clap, they smile, they hug them, they pick them up. And because of that, the children associate the behavior, speech, with positive reinforcement. So if I were writing about the debate over language acquisition, I would choose Skinner because it's super easy. Okay? You can also choose Bandura. So if you feel more comfortable with Bandura, remember the Bobo experiment? That children learned violence by watching violence? So you can use that as the nurture side. That children imitate adult models. So social learning theory or observational learning has two components, modeling and imitation. In the Bobo experiment, the people beat up an inflatable Bobo doll. And then when the children were so they modeled it. Then when children were put into the room with Bobo, they imitated that model. They started beating up the doll. Well, if they can learn violence that way, they can also learn language that way. Okay? So you could say adults speak to each other. So they model speech, which in turn children imitate because we learn socially, right? So the same way that your older brother can model tying his shoes for you when you're 4 years old, and you imitate your older brother and learn to tie your shoes, you can also learn to speak through social learning. Got it? So when you look at a question like that, it's not that scary, okay? Now, the other side of the debate is Chomsky. Noam Chomsky comes up with what he calls universal grammar. He says all human languages have the same building blocks. Doesn't matter whether you speak Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, English, Mandarin Chinese, Swahili, whether you speak Arabic or Hebrew, all of those languages have nouns, verbs, subjects, and objects. Those are the building blocks of every human language. Now, all of these languages formed independently of one another. So how do you explain that, other than language is wired right into our genes? If all of these societies and cultures were separated from each other for millennia, then the only explanation as to how they all form the same type of language is that we have common ancestors, that this is wired right into our genes. Got it? Another example of that is called the critical period hypothesis. So remember in that essay where it says provide evidence for one side? You can use feral children for either side. So I know Ms. Karate's classes, they looked at Jeannie and they looked at the other feral children, kids that were abandoned, who never learned language. But you can use that for nature, or you can use it for nurture. I probably would use it for nurture. Because they have such deprived environments, it would be easy to argue on the nurture side. No one is modeling speech for them, and nobody is reinforcing speech for them. Do you get it? All right. What time is it anyway? Anyone know? Here it is.
6:37.
Yeah, all right. That's all I have in me for today, guys. Okay, but that was all of cognition. I'll field some questions if anyone has questions for a little bit, but other than that, I'm sure my something for me to do.
Moyal,
Yeah.
can you go over the on the review sheet, the last one?
Okay. What is
for
that?
tomorrow's test. There was
Well, this is. What is it?
it was the Benjamin Wolf's.
Oh, that's what I just did. Linguistic relativity. That's Benjamin Worf. I did that. So if you remember, hold on. Oh no, that's the quiz. All right, that's the test. Oh, hold on. So who was that? Was that Athena or no?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can't see you. Yeah, remember we said thinking affects language. If you look outside, like I'm looking outside right now, and I'm thinking about the weather, and it's going to lead to the words I choose. It's windy outside, okay? But it's clear and pretty green. So I'm looking outside and I'm choosing vocabulary. So thinking affects language. What linguistic relativity says is that language also affects the way we think. So thinking doesn't only affect the words you choose also affect the way you think about something. So if you're a supermarket worker, people will think about that in a certain way. If you ask someone, what are you? You go, I'm a supermarket worker. But ever since the pandemic, they've been labeled essential workers. Do you think that changes the way that people think about people working in supermarkets? It should, because the language makes a difference. All right, Athena?
Okay.
All right. Any other questions, guys, just in general? Could be about the test, or it could be about content. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Wait, hold on.
Wait. Okay.
Go, and then Alice. I can only see some of you. Let me expand my grid here. Go.
Okay. Like number 2 on the review sheet is what is a prototype and how do we use them?
A prototype, remember, is the most typical example of a category. So a robin is a prototypical bird. A sedan, like a Honda, is a prototypical car. A Ford F-150 is a prototypical pickup truck. Okay? Dr. Gitz is a prototypical principal. Okay? Is he? I don't know. But it's the most typical example of a category. So that's what's the basis of a representativeness heuristic. You do what's called prototype matching. Like if you come into a school and you see an old man in a suit, you think he's a principal because he's the prototype of what a principal should be. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, Alice.
I still don't understand the morpheme phoneme thing, because you said that unbelievable has 3 morphemes, but
Yeah.
how does un have any meaningful?
Because is believable the same as unbelievable?
No.
If something is believable, does that mean the same thing as something being unbelievable? So un has changed the whole meaning of the word.
What about unbelieve?
Still not the same as believe.
Okay.
Okay. Well, unbelieve would have two meanings, two morphemes, but no one says unbelieve.
No, like if the word is unbelievable and you take out a bull.
Then it's two morphemes, but that wouldn't stand alone anyway. Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Like establishment has two morphemes. Establish means one thing, but if I say establishment, I've added ment, and that's a morpheme. It's changed the meaning. Now, hold on, Alice. If I say anti-establishment, have I changed the meaning of the word? Is establishment the same as anti-establishment?
No.
No. So anti is a morpheme. Establish is a morpheme, and meant is a morpheme. Okay.
So then, the phonemes are just every sound.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Little sound in the word. Okay. Okay. So like if you take the word cat, it has three morphemes. But if you take the word crate, like a crate of milk, that also only has three phonemes: cr, a, t. The e is silent, so it's not a phoneme. Did I say phonemes or morphemes? I said phoneme.
You said, wait, how does crate have only three?
Because cr, a, t.
So is it just the syllables?
No, because crate is only one syllable, but it's three sounds.
Why isn't it ka, ra, a?
You wouldn't separate it like that. The same way you wouldn't separate cha or sha or tha. Look, Alice, I nor the AP are going to have you counting them. Like, you don't have to count. I'm not going to have a question that says how many morphemes are in this word or how many
So
phonemes.
how would you like ask a question about
Usually
that?
it's just definitionals. It's which of the following is the smallest unit of sound in language? Phoneme, morpheme, syntax, grammar, language acquisition device, It's usually a definitional thing. They never have you counting, okay?
Okay, cool.
All right. Anything else, people?
I have one more question. Oh wait,
Riley.
Go, Riley.
You can go.
No, you go. No, you go. No, you go. No, you go.
Riley, go.
Okay, what's a creative thought and like divergent and convergent thinking?
So divergent and convergent thinking is thinking that spreads into many different directions. So creativity is divergent. So if I ask you how many uses for a brick can you figure out in 2 minutes, the people that would be the most creative would be the ones that have the most uses and the most diverse uses. So your thinking would diverge. I could use it as a weapon. I can use it as a doorstop. I can use it as a bookend. I can use it to write on the sidewalk. I can use it as a friend, okay? Convergent thinking is thinking that funnels you to the right answer. So convergent thinking is the type of thinking that we mostly use in school. We want all of your thinking to converge to get you to the right answer, which is why creative people don't usually like school, because they don't think that way. They think divergently, not convergently. Okay? All right, last one. Was that Jackie?
Yeah. Can you go over Hebb's law and LTP?
Okay. Yeah, that was on the memory sheet, right? Okay. So long-term potentiation. Here, let me show you. I'm actually glad you asked that, even though I want to go curl up in a ball and just not talk anymore.
Sorry.
It's okay. Classroom. All right. So actually drive. No, not that. I'm in the wrong thing. Okay.
You didn't teach us this
No,
in an actual class.
I gave it to you for homework, okay? Because I told you I didn't want to dedicate class time to it. Okay. Here we go. Some things you just do on your own, right? But I'll go over this with you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how does memory affect the brain? Okay. So hold on. I usually did an activity this. Memory is stored in synapses, right? So if you look, this is a synapse, a space between neurons, and this is where memory is stored. Memories are stored in chemicals called neurotransmitters, like acetylcholine, right? I was talking about with Jack with Alzheimer's, or norepinephrine. Long-term potentiation is an increase in the synapse's firing potential after continued stimulation. It becomes more sensitive and needs less stimulation. So Jackie, let me explain what that means. I know it sounds horrible. And Hebb's law goes along with it. If you look at Hebb's law is this: neurons that fire together wire together and are more likely to fire together in the future. So let me give you an example that you guys can all relate to. So most of you probably have a passcode on your phone, right? Like that's a smart thing to do. So when you put in your passcode, you have to do a certain combination of movements in your thumb, right? You do this. And
No, that's not on iPhones, Mr. Moyal.
What are you talking about? I have an iPhone. I have a passcode.
Yeah, but it's like you just click the buttons. There's no like movement thing.
Well, no, because let's say you're wearing a mask, and which is one of the worst parts of the pandemic for me, and your face thing doesn't work.
All right.
You have to put the code in, and if you put the code in, you do a combination.
Max, he means like the motion of your thumb.
Oh. All right, my bad.
Okay. Yeah. So Hebb's law says neurons that fire together wire together and are likely to fire together in the future. So when you first made your passcode, you were slow in putting it in. But the more you did those movements with your thumb, those neurons wired together. So you made what was called a neural network of movements. And what it means is you need less stimulation. You need to think less in order to put that code in. Right, guys? Like, do you go on autopilot? Same thing with a password.
Yeah.
You go to sit down at a computer and you don't even think. You just go, okay, and you put your password in. Because neurons that fire together wire together and are likely to fire together in the future. So the more you put that passcode in, the more efficient your synapses become. So you don't have to think about the movements you're doing in order to go through them. So in a nutshell, Jackie, long-term potentiation is the neural basis for memory. It says, like we play simple word association. Chloe, let's do it. Black.
White.
Man.
Woman.
Dog.
Cat.
Okay, so do you see that opposites are the first thing that are wired into your synapses? So it was the most efficient. Neurons that are wired together fire together and are more likely to fire together in the future. So if I say black to most people, they'll say white. If I say man to most people, they'll say woman. Okay? Jackie, does that help you?
Yeah, I'm just
know.
kind of confused on the LTP thing. Like,
LTP just means that synapses become more efficient with more use. So Jackie, have you ever tried to learn a dance? You know?
yeah.
And when you were doing it, you were like if I'm learning the Macarena, like, you know what I'm saying? You guys know the Macarena? But see, when you're first learning it, you're super slow. But the more you learn it, you start wiring all those movements together until you become very efficient, and you don't have to think about it. You just do it, and that's what long-term potentiation is. It's when synapses become strong with continued use. You don't need to, they become more efficient and require less effort. Okay?
Yeah, it makes sense now. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Look, if it was a normal year, we would have done this whole exercise in class where I give you these puzzle boards and you got to go through the puzzle boards like 20 times. And by the 20th time, you guys are zipping through these puzzle boards effortlessly. And I wish we could do it, but it wasn't a normal year. Okay? Anything else? You guys good? All righty, folks. Me and Oliver say goodbye. All right? I will see you tomorrow morning. I give you guys a lot of credit. This wasn't easy. I know it wasn't.
Have a great night.
See you.
Wait, Miss Moyal.
Yeah. Oh, Alice, I thought you were waving.
I just want to say that I liked the bike in your desktop picture.
Oh, that's my bike. Yeah, I just bought it. Sometimes I have to stare at it because it makes me really happy.
It's a nice bike.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
also, your license plate is on your desktop.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't care.
I'm just warning you. I don't
Why?
want you to have any stalkers,
You gonna steal my identity?
perhaps.
Okay. Well, you guys all heard it here first. Okay. Bad criminal. Okay. I'll see you guys. Have a good day.
Have a good night.
Pleasure.
Have a good night.
See